My name is Eleanor Harper. I'm 32 years old, and I'm the daughter who was sent to sleep in the garage on Christmas Eve while the snow fell quietly outside. Yes, I know, it sounds unbelievable, but have you ever felt like that? Like you were invisible in your own family, mentioned only when it was time to compare, to criticize, or to be replaced? I'm not a troublemaker. I've never been reckless. I haven't hurt anyone. My only fault is not following the perfect family plan my parents crafted for me when I was just 10 years old. My sister Victoria is different. She's successful, polished. She holds an impressive job and always sits at the head of the table during family dinners. And me, I sit at the far end. I pretend to be a modest community college teacher. I drive an old car. And I smile even when my mother says, "Eleanor, you'll be in the garage tonight. Amanda is pregnant. She needs the guest room more than you do." I remember saying nothing, just nodding, like I always do. Maybe you're wondering, why would anyone put up with that? Stay with me and I'll tell you why. This story isn't just about silence. It's about resilience. It's about justice and how a woman they dismissed was quietly building an empire. Have you ever been treated like you didn't matter? If you have, feel free to type just a few words in the comments. I know that feeling. I never planned to become invisible, but somewhere along the way, it became easier. Easier to stay quiet, easier to smile, nod, and step aside. Easier than fighting for a place in a family that had already decided who I was. They saw me as the quiet one, the strange one, the one who never quite lived up to the Harper name. So I created a version of myself that they could understand, one that didn't threaten their image. A woman with a humble job, a modest apartment, a plain life. I told them I taught literature at a community college. I let them believe I struggled to pay rent, clipped coupons, bought shoes on clearance, and they never asked more, because it fit the story they wanted to believe. Victoria, my older sister, was the shining star. Every promotion was celebrated like a coronation. Every holiday she arrived in luxury tailored suits, expensive gifts, stories from boardrooms and business flights. And me, I brought pie, homemade, still warm. But no one asked for the recipe. They'd nod politely, then shift the conversation. Back to Victoria, back to her brilliance, and I became the background. Christmas Eve came like it always did. Same house, same table, same people, same expectations. My sister, Victoria, arrived with her usual fanfare. A new handbag, a new title, this time Junior Vice President of Operations. There was applause, laughter. My parents beamed with pride. Even the guests looked impressed. And me, I took my seat near the end of the table. Quiet, present, but not really seen. The roast was passed, the wine flowed, and then Victoria leaned forward and said, "Isn't it just so sad when people don't reach their potential?" She didn't have to say my name. She didn't need to. Everyone knew who she meant. Her boss, Mr. Denton, chuckled. Right on cue. He swirled his wine and said something about real jobs and real companies. I smiled, a little, and said nothing, because my phone buzzing silently in my lap told me everything I needed to know. 3 messages, all marked urgent, tomorrow's board meeting, the one that could change the future of Denton's company, and the one waiting for just one thing, my signature. But I stayed still, held my fork, cut my turkey, and listened as my family laughed without me. That's when Mom turned to me, casual as ever, and said, "The garage is ready, Eleanor. We set up a space heater for you. Lauren needs the guest room. She's expecting you know." I looked up. The room had gone quiet, but not from shock, from interest. They were listening, waiting, like it was part of the show. "The garage," I said softly, letting the word rest on my tongue, cold, like the air outside. "Don't be dramatic," Mom replied without looking. "You're used to modest spaces," and I nodded, like always. The garage was cold, even colder than I remembered. Concrete floor, thin blanket, an old cot, wedged between dusty boxes and Dad's forgotten golf clubs. A space heater buzzed faintly in the corner, trying, but failing, to warm anything beyond a single square foot. They didn't mean it as cruelty. That's the part that stings the most. To them, it was normal. This was tradition. Every year, the same pattern, and I had always played my part. I sat on the cot for a moment, letting the silence settle in, letting the cold bite, just a little. Then I reached for my phone. 4 emails, all urgent. The board was waiting. Tomorrow's vote would seal the acquisition. The company Victoria worked for had already been bought months ago, quietly, through a holding group owned by me. She didn't know. None of them did, because I'd made sure no one could trace it. I liked it that way. Anonymous, untouchable, free. They thought I was struggling, because that's what I let them believe. But while they were laughing at the teacher with no ambition, I was rewriting the rules. Victoria's boss, Mr. Denton, had spent the last month begging to meet the CEO, the woman behind the curtain, the one with final say on his bonus, his future, his reputation. I smiled to myself. As my assistant messaged me again, Mr. Denton's asking if you're still in London. Should I say yes? Yes. Let him think I'm still across the ocean. Let him feel safe for one more night. Because tomorrow, Christmas dinner would taste a little different. The next evening, I dressed quietly. No makeup, no jewelry, just a simple sweater. Neutral, soft, underneath a silk blouse worth more than the room I slept in. I combed my hair back, pulled on my boots, slipped my phone into my coat pocket. Outside, the snow had started again. Light flakes, gentle, almost peaceful. I walked up the path alone, past the decorated porch, past the glowing wreath, back into the house that had never really seen me. The dining room buzzed with chatter. Candles flickered, wine glasses clinked, and there she was, Victoria. Already seated near the head of the table, she was laughing. One hand rested on Mr. Denton's arm, as if she belonged there. I took my place. Far end of the table. As usual, Dad looked up. Victoria was just telling us about her promotion, he said. Isn't that wonderful? I nodded. Took the plate being passed to me. Congratulations, Vic. I'm sure Summit Enterprises is impressed. Mr. Denton smiled. She's one of our brightest. The merger opened so many doors for people like her. Mom beamed. We were so worried when Summit took over. But it's been wonderful. I sipped my water. Listened. Victoria leaned in. No one knows who the CEO is. She never shows her face. Total mystery. London, Tokyo. No one really knows. She must be hiding something, she added. Probably some spoiled rich girl who got lucky. Mr. Denton's phone buzzed. He checked it. Blinked. Excuse me, I need to take this. He stepped out, but his voice drifted back into the room. Yes, I have the reports. No, I haven't reached her yet. I understand. Yes. Still in London, he returned, pale, distracted. But the show continued. Victoria cut her turkey. I just restructured our operations, she announced. Saved the company millions. I glanced at my phone. Pulled up the real report. Losses, inefficiencies, red ink everywhere. I didn't say a word. Not yet. Mom leaned over. More wine, Eleanor? Maybe stick to water. You know, with your income. Victoria smirked. Mr. Denton's phone buzzed again. His hand shook. He stood up. Please. I just need 5 minutes with her before tomorrow's meeting. The room was warm. Too warm. Or maybe it was just me, holding too many truths behind a steady face. Uncle Richard leaned back in his chair. Did you all hear Summit just acquired Richardson Global? 12 billion out of nowhere, Aunt Sylvia chimed in. They never saw it coming, that CEO, whoever she is. She's ruthless. I looked down at my plate. Still half full? Still untouched? I remembered the Richardson deal, the months of work, the long nights, the precision it took to move that quietly, that fast. Strategic, yes. Ruthless, no. But they would never understand the difference. Mr. Denton came back in. He looked exhausted. Palms damp, jaw clenched. Emergency meeting tomorrow? CEO's orders, he muttered. All department heads. 7:00 a.m. Victoria froze. Her fork hit the plate. Tomorrow's Christmas. She doesn't care, Mr. Denton whispered. She wants a full review of operational changes. Silence spread like a fog, dense, heavy. Then I spoke. The meeting's at 8 o'clock, not 7. All eyes turned. Slow, confused. And Victoria won't need her reports, I said softly. I've already reviewed them. Laughter bubbled at the edge of her voice. What are you talking about? You don't even work for Summit. I stood, pulled back my shoulders, lifted my chin, and said the words they never expected. Actually, I do. In fact, I am Summit. Mr. Denton stared, mouth open, color drained from his face. The reports you've been trying to send, I continued. I received them last week. We'll discuss Q4 projections in the morning. Victoria looked like she couldn't breathe. You're Eleanor Harper, Denton whispered. The CEO. That's right, I said. But most people just call me Mrs. CEO. Behind me, Mom's glass slipped. Red wine spilled across the white tablecloth. No one moved to clean it. Nobody spoke. Not right away. Just the faint hum of the chandelier and the sound of Victoria, breathing faster. This is a joke, she whispered. It has to be. I reached into my coat pocket, pulled out my phone, tapped the screen. My ID lit up on the dining room wall. Name, title, photo, everything in full view. No joke, Vic, I said. While you were climbing the corporate ladder, I was building the building. Mom's voice trembled. But you're a teacher. I teach one class a semester, I nodded, because I believe in education and giving back. The rest of my time, I run one of the large private equity firms in the country. Victoria pushed back from the table. Her chair scraped across the hardwood. You can't be. You live in a tiny apartment. You drive a Honda. I smiled. I own the building where my apartment is, and the Honda, it's better for the environment. I paused, looked directly at her. Unlike your Mercedes, which, by the way, shouldn't have been charged to the company card. Mr. Denton slowly sank into his seat, his hands clenched, his eyes wide with memory of every smug comment he'd made about the ghost CEO. The garage, he muttered. We made you sleep in the garage. I met his eyes. Yes, you did. All of you were so busy judging what you saw. You never looked deeper. Victoria said nothing, but her face had gone pale, almost hollow. The room didn't move. No fork scraped a plate, no glass lifted. No one dared speak. I turned to Victoria. Her eyes darted toward the floor. Remember last month, I said. Sarah from accounting needed time off for her son's surgery. Victoria nodded slowly, still silent. You denied her request. You said it would disrupt workflow. I took a steady breath. Let it land. I approved it myself, and I arranged for the best pediatric surgeon in the country, because that's what real leaders do. They care. They protect people. They do what's right, even when no one's watching. Dad finally cleared his throat. Soft, hesitant. Why didn't you tell us, Eleanor? I looked at him, not with anger, but with a long, quiet ache. Would it have mattered? Would you have treated me differently if I wasn't successful by your standards? Would you have seen me if I'd stayed a teacher forever? This family measures worth in titles, in brands, in bank accounts. But I wanted more than that. I wanted to build something that meant something. Mr. Denton fidgeted with his tie. Sweat dotted his forehead. Tomorrow's board meeting will continue as scheduled, I said, and we will be discussing the $3 million operational loss, among other things. I turned my eyes back to Victoria. I suggest everyone come prepared. She didn't reply, didn't move. Victoria's voice cracked, barely louder than a whisper. You're going to fire me. I looked at her, not with rage, not even with satisfaction, just clarity. No, I said gently. I'm going to do what I should have done a long time ago. I gathered my coat, lifted my bag from the chair. Everything quiet, measured, no sudden moves. I'm going to hold you accountable. Success isn't about titles or power. It's about results, about integrity, about how you treat people, even when they have nothing to offer you. I turned toward the hallway, the same hallway I used to walk as a child, the one where my voice never echoed, where I was always just a shadow beside Victoria's spotlight. But not tonight. Behind me I heard the tremble, Mom protesting, Victoria denying, Mr. Denton, already on another frantic call. Still I didn't turn back. I stopped at the door, paused, let the moment breathe. One more thing I said. I won't be sleeping in the garage tonight. I have a suite at the Four Seasons, which, by the way, I own. No one followed me. The snow outside had thickened. It clung to the windshield as I started the car. The heater hummed, soft, warm, familiar. My phone buzzed. Messages, missed calls. Family now desperate to rewrite history, to spin kindness from cruelty, to pretend they knew me all along. I ignored them all. Morning came early. Quiet. Still. The city still wrapped in holiday hush. I arrived at Summit headquarters just before 7. Tall glass, polished stone, a world far from the garage. I walked the halls I built, not with noise, but with vision. Clara, my assistant, greeted me. "Everyone's here. They've been waiting since 6. I nodded. "Let's begin." Inside the boardroom, every seat was filled. Victoria, Mr. Denton, the same faces from last night, now silent, straight-backed, watching. I took my place at the head. No one dared speak first. I looked around the table, held their gaze, one by one. "Before we begin," I said slowly, "there's something we need to talk about. Not revenue, not mergers, not reports, culture, how we treat people, because numbers can recover. But broken trust doesn't fix so easily." Victoria sat still, her pen in hand, taking notes for the first time I could remember. "Leadership," I continued, "isn't about control. It's about responsibility, about seeing value, even when no one else does, about protecting those who can't speak for themselves." Mr. Denton cleared his throat, softly. "I was wrong," he said, "about everything." I let the words sit in the air. No rush, no rescue. "You weren't alone," I said. Outside, the snow kept complaining. Steady, unbothered, like truth, like time. Sometimes I said the best revenge isn't about getting even, it's about rising so far above they can't reach you anymore. The meeting ended without applause. But that wasn't what I came for. What mattered was the quiet. The stillness that came after truth had finally been spoken. Victoria didn't argue, she didn't storm out. She stayed seated, stared down at her notes like they were written in a language she didn't know. Mr. Denton offered a handshake. I took it, firm, measured, final. Outside the wind had picked up, but inside I felt calm, lighter. In the elevator, no one spoke. They didn't need to. I had said everything I ever needed to say. As I stepped into the lobby, Clara handed me my coat. "You were incredible," she whispered. I smiled, not because of pride, but because something inside me had settled, finally. That night, I sat by the window in my suite, fireplace on, a soft blanket draped across my lap, the city glowing beneath me. I sipped my tea, not wine, not champagne, just something warm, simple, honest. My phone buzzed again, messages from family, more apologies. Some real, some not. I read them, but didn't respond. Because forgiveness takes time, and trust even longer. I looked around the room, 12-foot ceilings, marble floors, a view that stretched for miles, and I thought quietly, next Christmas, I think I'll host. 15,000 square feet, plenty of room. They can sleep in the garage. A week passed. Quietly, no drama, no dinners, no cold garages, just space. The kind I never had before, the kind you make when you stop trying to fit where you don't belong. Then one afternoon a package arrived. No card, no note, just a small box wrapped in silver paper. Inside a key, and a folded piece of stationery. Plain, familiar. It was Mom's handwriting. For the lake house it read, "You always loved it there." That was true. I did. But they sold it years ago. At least that's what they told me. I held the key in my hand for a long time, not sure whether to laugh or cry. Victoria texted later that night. "I didn't know who you were," she wrote, "but I'm starting to. I was cruel. I'm sorry." I didn't answer right away, not because I was angry, but because I needed to be sure that this wasn't about guilt or fear or trying to find a way back to something we never really had. People say time heals. Maybe, but space tells the truth. And sometimes, people only see your worth after they've lost the version of you they used to ignore. I hadn't thought about the lake house in years, not since they sold it. Or said they did. It was a small place, wooden steps, worn porch swing, a roof that creaked when the wind changed, but it was the only place I'd ever felt safe. As a child, I used to sit by the water for hours, sketching, reading, just being. No one shouted there, no one compared grades or measured me against Victoria. It was just trees, water, and quiet. Now the key sat in my palm again. Solid, cold, but real. Had they kept it all this time? Had it stayed in the family, just hidden from me? Or had they bought it back? After everything changed, I didn't know, and I wasn't ready to ask, but I did drive out there. Early one morning, before the sun had fully risen, the road was the same, winding, narrow, branches still reached across like arms trying to touch. When I pulled into the driveway, I sat in the car for a while, listening, waiting. Then I stepped out. Crunch of gravel beneath my feet, breath rising in the cold. The key fit, turned smooth, like it had been waiting, and when the door opened, I stood there for a long moment. Not afraid, not sad, just home. The air inside the lake house was still, like no one had breathed there in years, and maybe no one had. Dust floated in the morning light, curtains hung in soft folds. The same checkered couch sat by the fireplace, just like I remembered. I didn't cry, not because I wasn't moved, but because it felt right. Not dramatic, not shocking, just peaceful. I walked slowly, one room to the next, letting memories return. Quiet ones, gentle ones, the carved initials on the window frame. Mine, etched at age 12. Still there? Faded but honest. In the kitchen, an old mug rested near the sink, chipped on one side. I used to drink cocoa from it, after swimming, wrapped in towels too big for my shoulders. I sat down at the table, ran my fingers across the surface. This was where I once dreamed out loud, before the world told me to dream. Smaller, quieter, safer, but somehow the girl who sat at this table had found her way back, not as a child, but as someone whole. I made tea, the kettle still worked. The sound was the same, soft whistle, familiar steam, a memory held in heat. I sipped slowly. No phone, no meetings, just me. And a place that didn't ask me to be anything, except myself. That afternoon, I didn't open my laptop, didn't check the market, didn't return messages. The world could wait, just for a while. Instead, I watched the water, the same lake I used to stare at for hours, wondering who I'd become, wishing someone would ask. Now I didn't need the question, because I already knew the answer. I'd become someone who didn't shout, didn't demand, didn't chase approval from voices that never listened. I had built something. Yes, a company, a name. But more than that, I had built peace. And peace is quieter than you think. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't sparkle. It doesn't need applause. It just sits beside you, like steam from your tea, like sunlight on your hand, like stillness that no longer feels empty. At some point, you stop needing people to say sorry for not believing in you. You just let it be. Let them sit with their silence while you rest in your own. Have you ever reached the moment where proving yourself stopped mattering? If so, just write, "This, quiet is enough." Evening came slowly. The sky shifted from soft gold to deep blue, and the lake mirrored it all. Still, steady, like it knew how long I'd waited to come home. I lit the fireplace. The wood caught fast. The crackle filled the silence without disturbing it. Then my phone rang. I let it ring twice before picking up. Not out of urgency, just choice. It was Mom. Her voice was careful, not cold but searching. "Eleanor," she said, "I wasn't sure you'd answer. I didn't speak right away. I wanted her to feel the space, not out of punishment, but truth." We didn't know, she continued. None of us did. It wasn't about knowing, I said. It was about not asking. Silence, then a sigh. "You were always strong," she said. "I think we didn't know what to do with that." I let her words sit. They didn't fix anything, but they were honest, maybe for the first time. "You built something beautiful," she added. "We're proud of you." Pride, that word, it used to feel like a prize I'd never win. Now, it felt small. Not because it meant nothing, but because I'd already found my own. "Thank you," I said. Soft, clear. "But I'm not coming back for dinner just yet. I need time to be seen differently. Not just respected, but known." The fire burned low, but I didn't add more wood. I liked the way it faded. Soft, natural, like certain conversations. I stayed seated long after the call ended, holding the quiet, letting it settle inside me. Not all pain is loud. Sometimes it's in the spaces between what's said And what was never offered? They'd started to see me. Yes, but seeing isn't the same as understanding. And understanding takes time. I wasn't bitter, not anymore, but I wasn't ready to pretend, to laugh like nothing had happened, to sit at the table and act like the garage never existed. I needed more than apology, more than praise. I needed recognition of the silence they made me carry, of the weight they handed me and never noticed I held. I stood, closed the curtains, washed the mug, folded the blanket at the foot of the couch. Simple things, small motions, but they felt like steps toward something, just mine. Outside, the lake shimmered under moonlight, still, wide. It had seen me change without asking me to. That night I slept deeply, not because everything was healed, but because for once I wasn't the one apologizing. The next morning I woke with sunlight on my face. Soft, gentle, not rushed, not sharp, just kind. The lake outside was still again, like it had paused just for me. I made tea, the same chipped mug, same quiet hum from the kettle, and then I found the old writing desk tucked beneath the window. Dusty, solid, still waiting after all these years. I sat down, opened a fresh page, and wrote a letter. To Victoria. I didn't plan to send it, but I wrote it anyway. You hurt me, I wrote. Not because you were cruel, but because you didn't care to look deeper. You loved being above me, but never once asked if I was standing on something stronger than you imagined. I paused, let the ink dry, then kept going. I don't hate you, but I won't return to who I was, just to make you feel better. I built something and I did it alone. If you want to know me now, you'll have to meet me here, not back where we started. I folded the page, placed it in the drawer. No envelope, no stamp, just the truth, kept safe. For me, not all healing needs an audience. Some of it just needs a witness. Later that day, I sat by the dock, wrapped in an old sweater. The one I found in the closet, still carrying a faint scent of cedar and thyme. The lake was calm, a sheet of silver, no ripples, no rush. I didn't need noise, or updates, or news from the boardroom. For once, stillness wasn't waiting for something. It was the something. I thought about the years I spent trying to explain myself, trying to earn space, trying to be seen. I remembered dinners where no one asked about my life, only about Victoria's next title, her next car, her next success. And I'd smiled, always, thinking one day they'd ask, one day they'd want to know. That day never came, until I made them see. But now I wasn't hungry for their eyes anymore. I wasn't chasing recognition. I'd found something better. Silence, not empty, but whole. No defending, no proving, no explaining why I'd made the choices I made. The truth was enough, and so was I. Sometimes you don't need to say another word. You just need to stop shrinking in rooms that never heard you anyway. By evening, the sky turned a deeper blue, the kind that holds stars, even before they show. I packed my bag slowly, folded each piece with care, not rushed, not escaping, just ready. I looked around the cabin one last time, let my eyes rest on the small things, the curtain sway, the soft prints in the rug, the way the light hugged the wood. This place had held me, not just this week, but years ago when I was still learning what strength sounded like on the inside. I didn't leave a note, didn't announce I'd been there. That wasn't the point. Not every return needs a headline. Some are just for the soul, just for the quiet parts that waited too long. As I locked the door, I held the key for a moment longer, then placed it in the mailbox. No need to keep it. If they wanted to find me again, they'd have to start from truth, not from assumption, not from expectation. The road away was soft, wheels crunching gravel, trees parting gently. And for the first time in years, I didn't rehearse a conversation in my head. Didn't brace for judgment, didn't wonder if I'd said enough, because leaving quietly when it's your choice is a kind of power too. The drive back was slow, not because of traffic, but because I wasn't in a hurry. There was no meeting waiting, no performance to give, no dinner table where I had to prove my worth, just miles of road and a quiet heart. Finally, not searching. I passed the old gas station, the one where we used to stop as kids. Victoria always got the window seat. I always got the silence. Funny how those little things stay. tucked somewhere in the mind, not bitter, just remembered. The city came into view, tall buildings, familiar turns, but it didn't feel heavy this time. I wasn't going back to be seen, I wasn't returning to explain. I was simply going home on my terms. Clara had left flowers in the entryway, simple white lilies. A note rested nearby. "Welcome back," it read. "You were missed." But I hadn't been gone. Not really. I'd just gone inward, gone quiet, gone honest. Sometimes healing doesn't look like celebration. It looks like knowing you don't need to reopen every door just because it's still there. Some places don't need revisiting. Some versions of you don't need reviving. That evening, I sat by the window. Same city skyline, same soft hum in the distance, but something inside me had shifted. I wasn't planning the next move, wasn't replaying old conversations, wasn't wondering what they thought of me now. I had stopped needing to explain to anyone. Not to Victoria, not to my parents, not even to myself. There's a kind of freedom that comes quietly when you no longer shape your life around someone else's understanding. I poured tea. Same mug from the lake house, chipped, familiar, mine. And I thought back to all the times I wanted to be heard, to be asked what I really wanted, who I really was. They never asked. And maybe they never will, but I'm not waiting anymore, not holding my breath for a recognition that doesn't know how to arrive. Peace doesn't come from finally being understood. It comes from no longer needing that to feel whole. I looked out at the lights. They blinked and flickered like they always had. But now they didn't demand anything from me. They were just there, like me, still standing. A few days later, an envelope arrived. Handwritten, unmistakable. It was from Victoria. No return address, just my name. And the past, sitting quietly on my kitchen table. I didn't open it right away. I made tea first, fed the cat, let the kettle whistle a little longer than needed. Then I sat. Turned the envelope over in my hands, once, twice, not nervous, not afraid, just careful. I opened it slowly, a single page, no perfume, no embellishment, just words. "Eleanor," it began, "I've been rewriting this for days. I keep trying to find a way to say sorry that feels big enough to cover years, but nothing I write feels as honest as simply saying I was wrong." I paused. Let the sentence breathe. You never needed my permission to be great, but I withheld kindness anyway, out of fear, out of pride. I hope you keep going, even if I'm not part of it. The letter ended there. No asking for a reply, no guilt, just a kind of release. I folded it once, tucked it into the drawer near the stove. Not to hide it, but to keep it somewhere that felt lived in. Some apologies don't need a grand return. Sometimes the quiet ones land the deepest. I didn't cry after reading her letter. I thought I might, but the tears never came, not because I wasn't moved, but because I was ready to let that chapter close, not with a slam, not with bitterness, just with stillness. There was no need to call her, no urge to write back. What she gave me in that quiet note wasn't closure, it was release. A door opened, and I didn't have to walk through it if I didn't want to. That's the thing no one tells you. Healing doesn't always end in reunion. Sometimes it ends in peace, without reconnection. I stood by the window. The city below moved as it always had, unbothered, unaffected. And for once, I matched its rhythm. Not racing ahead, not falling behind, just here, in my life, as I built it. I didn't feel cold, didn't feel empty, didn't feel like I needed another word, another text, another explanation. Some things you simply outgrow, not because they were nothing, but because they were never meant to follow you forever. That weekend I went through some old boxes, ones I hadn't opened in years, tucked in the back of a hallway closet, stacked neatly, dust on the lids, memories sealed inside. I wasn't searching for anything, not exactly, just curious. I opened the first one slowly. Old journals, ticket stubs, a scarf I hadn't worn since college. Then near the bottom, a photo, faded, edges curled. It was me and Victoria, on the dock at the lake house, bare feet, wind in our hair, smiling like we didn't know what silence would one day grow between us. I held it for a long time, not with sorrow, not with regret, but with recognition. That version of us, those girls, they didn't fail. They just grew into women the world shaped differently. I placed the photo on the shelf, framed it, not to pretend, not to rewrite, but to honor what once was true, because not every memory has to carry pain. Some can just sit quietly, a reminder of softness before the storms. It was a Tuesday. No special date, no grand moment, just an ordinary morning, with quiet light through the curtains and the scent of fresh coffee in the kitchen. I stood in front of the mirror, not rushing, not adjusting, just looking. For years I had dressed to disappear. Muted colors, simple cuts, nothing too loud, nothing that asked for attention. It wasn't shame. It was survival, a way to move through rooms without making noise. But that morning I chose something different. A deep navy blouse, soft silk, strong shoulders. I added a pin, a small gold piece I had bought years ago but never worn, not because I didn't love it, but because I didn't think I was allowed to shine that way. Funny how we deny ourselves what no one ever actually took. I didn't have a meeting, no boardroom to impress, but I wore it anyway, for me. Not to be seen, but to stop hiding. There's a difference, and when I walked out the door, there was no applause. Just a quiet breeze and the sound of footsteps finally moving forward without apology. Later that afternoon, I walked to the cafe near my building, the same one I used to pass but rarely entered. Not because I didn't like it, but because it felt indulgent, unnecessary, a luxury of time I didn't think I deserved. But today was different. I wasn't rushing between meetings, wasn't answering emails mid-step, wasn't shrinking myself into the rhythm others expected of me. I ordered tea, sat by the window. No laptop, no planner, just a napkin, a pen, and space. Outside, the world moved as it always had. Children with backpacks, a woman walking her dog, a man adjusting his tie before heading inside. And inside, I breathed, not deep, not dramatic, just steady, present. I wrote a few lines, not for a speech, not for a pitch, just words that had waited too long to arrive. I am no longer performing, I am living. And that is enough. I folded the napkin, slipped it into my coat pocket, not to keep it forever, just for today. Sometimes freedom isn't a big moment, it's a small ritual, a quiet choice, a table by the window you finally let yourself sit at. The next morning, just as I was finishing breakfast, my phone rang. Clara's name lit up the screen. I answered with a smile. She rarely called this early unless something needed care. "Eleanor," she said gently, "you've received a meeting request." I paused. Meetings weren't new, but her tone was. "It's from Victoria," she added. "She asked for 10 minutes, just to talk." I didn't answer right away. Let the words hang, measured. Still, not out of fear, but because I was deciding whether I still owed her that time. Then I nodded. Set it for Friday. Nothing formal. She knows where to find me. When Friday came, I didn't dress up, didn't prepare a script, didn't expect anything. Victoria arrived on time. Hair pulled back, hands clasped tight, eyes softer than I remembered. She didn't bring gifts or defense, just a worn look that said more than rehearsed words ever could. We sat. She spoke first. No speech, no shield. "I've been carrying a version of you in my head," she said, "that never matched who you truly were. I'm sorry for never asking to know the real you." I listened, not with walls up, but not with open arms either, just steady, present, a witness to the shift. Victoria sat across from me, her shoulders not as square, her voice not as sharp. Something had softened. We didn't talk about the company or the boardroom or the garage, not at first. Instead, we talked about small things. How Mom had started baking again, how Dad still forgot where he left his glasses, how the lake house looked in the fall. No tension, no hidden barbs, just conversation. She looked around the room, took in the shelves, the quiet, the art on the wall. "This place feels like you," she said. Strong, calm, private. I smiled, not out of pride, but because she finally saw me, not just what I'd built. She took a breath, then said softly, "I never meant to make you small. I just didn't know how to be anything other than the one they noticed." I let that settle. Not as an excuse, but as a truth she had wrestled with long before this moment. I didn't rush to forgive, didn't rush to forget, but I nodded. Because some bridges don't have to burn to be rebuilt. Sometimes they just need time to carry different weight. We didn't plan to stay long, but somehow the minutes stretched quietly. I made tea, just like I always do. Same kettle, same chipped mug, and I handed Victoria one of the good cups. No message in that. Just something whole. She held it carefully, looked at the steam rising, then at me. You know, she said I thought success would feel louder. I nodded. It's not loud. It's still and hard-earned. We sipped in silence. Not uncomfortable, not heavy, just two women who had finally run out of pretending. She looked down at her hands, then back at me. Do you think we'll ever be close again? I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know, but because I did. Maybe not the way we once were, I said, but maybe something new, something honest. She nodded. No protest, no rush. We talked a little longer. Nothing deep, just enough. When she stood to leave, she didn't ask for anything more, didn't offer promises. She just said, "Thank you for letting me come," and I walked her to the door. After she left, I didn't cry, didn't collapse, didn't feel anything dramatic. I just stood there, by the door, hand resting on the knob, breathing in the quiet she'd left behind. The room felt the same, but lighter, like something had been set down that had been carried for far too long. I walked to the window, looked out, not searching for her car, not replaying the moment, just still. She hadn't said everything, and I hadn't needed her to. Not every wound needs explanation. Not every scar asks to be named. Some things just settle. And in that settling, something stronger takes root. I thought back to the beginning, to the garage, to the silence, to the nights I told myself I deserved less because they acted like I did. And now I didn't need revenge, didn't need a grand scene, didn't need to win, because healing isn't a contest. It's a quiet reclaiming of the self you nearly abandoned to be accepted. That evening, I opened a fresh notebook, one I'd been saving, not for work, not for plans, just for something mine. The first page was crisp, empty, inviting. I didn't write about the past, not this time. No recaps, no reflections. Instead, I wrote what I wanted next. Not goals, but feelings, moments. I want quiet mornings with sunlight on the floor, conversations that don't rush, laughter that doesn't come from performing, kindness without cost, company without competition, and rooms where I don't have to shrink. Each line felt like a soft exhale, a space being made. Because after years of being defined by what others didn't see in me, it was time to decide what I saw in myself. I closed the notebook, no pressure to fill it, no need to prove anything, just the beginning of pages that would be written on my terms. Not to impress, not to defend, but to live. Have you ever picked up the pen, not to explain who you were, but to imagine who you're still becoming? If so, type this. These are my pages now. The next few days were quiet, not empty, not lonely, just simple. Mornings with warm tea, a book half read, the hum of the city just outside the window. I checked in with Clara. No emergencies, no fires to put out, just steady progress, the kind that doesn't shout but holds everything in place. Success used to mean motion, meetings, flights, deals that moved fast and left no room to breathe. But now success looked like space. A day with nothing urgent, an afternoon walk without checking the time, a phone on silent, and a mind that didn't panic. I wasn't disappearing. I was redefining, not less driven, just more whole. I still led, still made decisions, still owned everything I built. But now I didn't need the noise to feel like I was doing enough. I wasn't chasing visibility. I was grounded in value, and value doesn't always come with a spotlight. One afternoon, I walked into the same bookstore I used to pass but never entered. Not because I didn't love books, but because I never gave myself the time. Now I had time. Not because life slowed down, but because I stopped measuring worth by urgency. Inside, the air was warm, paper, ink, wooden shelves with soft creaks when you leaned in too far. I wandered without a list, without purpose. Let my fingers trail along spines, let curiosity lead. Eventually, I found a small corner, a chair by the window, and I sat, not to perform stillness, but to live in it. Around me, people whispered. Pages turned. Nothing demanded anything from me. I was just there, breathing, present, whole. Later, a woman asked if the seat beside me was taken. I smiled. Not at all. We didn't speak much, just shared space, soft glances, mutual quiet, and I realized this was the kind of company I craved now. Not noise, not applause, just presence. That evening, I walked home slowly. No rush, no noise in my head, just footsteps and breath. The streetlights had started to glow, soft pools of gold on quiet sidewalks. Shadows stretched gently across the pavement. Familiar, but not heavy. Everything felt slower now, but not smaller, just mine. I passed by the building I used to work in. Tall glass, spinning doors, the lobby still lit like ambition never slept. I smiled, not with bitterness, but with memory. That place gave me lessons, grit, fire, but it never gave me rest. Now I didn't need to be lit up all night to prove I was burning bright. I kept walking, one block at a time, until I reached my door. Inside my apartment was quiet. Warm light in the kitchen, blanket folded neatly, nothing out of place, nothing pretending to be more. I set my bag down, removed my coat, and just stood there. This life was not a performance. It was not built for their approval or their applause. It was built for me. The next morning, I woke before the alarm. No deadlines pressing, no inbox screaming, just light and breath. I made breakfast slowly. Toasted bread, sliced fruit, brewed tea in that same chipped mug, the one that's been with me through versions of myself no one else knew. I sat by the window, notebook open, pen in hand, no agenda, no pressure to create something remarkable. Just words, just reflection, just being. There was a time when every hour had to count. Every moment needed to show progress, growth, achievement. But now I've stopped measuring life by how fast it moves. Success today doesn't look like packed calendars or overflowing to-do lists. It looks like peace, choice, boundaries honored, energy kept instead of constantly spent. I still lead, still own, still create, but I don't chase. Not anymore. What I've built no longer needs to be defended. It speaks for itself, and so do I when I choose to. Later that day, an invitation arrived. Elegant paper, embossed lettering, a familiar family crest in the corner. It was from Victoria. A holiday gathering, same house, same table. I held it for a moment, not with anger, not with dread, just stillness. There was a time when I would have studied every word, wondered what they really meant, tried to decode the tone, tried to predict who I would need to be to feel welcome. But I don't wonder anymore, because I've stopped asking for a seat at tables that never fed me. That doesn't mean I'm angry. It means I'm full of the life I built, full of love I didn't have to earn by becoming smaller. I placed the invitation on the counter, didn't toss it, didn't frame it, just let it be. I might go, or I might not. But either way, I no longer arrive looking for permission to exist, and that changes everything. I thought about the invitation for 2 full days, didn't rush the decision, didn't ask anyone's opinion, just let the question sit with me. Not, should I go? But how would I feel walking in not as the forgotten daughter, not as the one sent to the garage, not as the quiet success they only just discovered, but as myself, whole, present, unapologetic. And once that became clear, the answer came gently. I would go, but not to prove anything. I would go because I had nothing to hide, because I could walk into that room on steady feet and leave the weight at the door. No need for armor, no need for grand entrances, just a woman with a story they barely knew, but one I had fully claimed. I pulled out a soft gray coat, simple, warm, and a scarf I bought years ago but never wore because it felt too much. Not today. Sometimes showing up isn't about reclaiming space. It's about bringing yourself fully into it without shrinking. I arrived just before dusk. The house stood the same. White lights around the porch, soft music drifting through the windows. Familiar, but not intimidating. This time my hands didn't tremble on the doorknob. My breath didn't catch. I was not there to be evaluated. I was not entering as someone seeking approval. I stepped inside. The same hallway. Same photos on the wall, but the air felt lighter. Or maybe I did. Mom greeted me first, a hug, a little longer than usual. Her eyes searched mine but didn't press. I'm glad you came, she said. So am I. No performance, just presence. In the dining room, Victoria stood beside the fireplace. She looked up, met my gaze, no theatrics, just a quiet nod. You look well, she said. I am, I replied. And I meant it. I took a seat not at the far end, not at the head, but where I chose. The room didn't hold power over me anymore. I wasn't there to fit in. I was there because I belonged to myself. Dinner passed quietly. Not stiff, not tense. Just softer. Conversations moved gently. No one asked about mergers or profits, or the company I built from silence. And that was fine. I didn't come to be admired. I came to be real. To sit at the table not as a symbol, but as a sister, a daughter, a woman who had returned on her own terms. When dessert was served, Victoria leaned over. The lake house? I go there sometimes now. I nodded. It's a good place. Still holds everything. We didn't need more. Some relationships aren't healed by long talks. They're rebuilt in moments like this, quiet recognition. No defense, no demand. After coffee, I stood to leave. Not early, not rushed, just ready. I hugged Mom, shook Dad's hand, met Victoria's eyes one last time. She didn't say much, but her smile reached further than words ever had. As I stepped outside, the air was cool, steady. The car door closed behind me with a soft click, not an escape, but a return to my peace. No fireworks, no speeches, because sometimes you don't need the last word to know you've already said everything that mattered. If any part of this story found its way into your heart, if you've ever walked your own quiet road toward peace, I'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments. Tell me which moment stayed with you. And if this kind of storytelling speaks to you, gently tap subscribe so you don't miss what's still to come. Sometimes the next chapter starts with just one more story, and I'd be honored to share it with you.